Hey everybody, how you doing? This is about to be a really fun video. In this video, we're going to talk about a newer cartridge, one that I've never had. Right here, it's in the thumbnail. And we're going to talk about, is this really new, or are some older historical cartridges just as good or even better? This, what we're focusing on today, some of you might have already guessed it, the 22 ARC. Now, if you look at Hornady, a lot of their marketing says, in this, which is short, case length gets it inside of an AR-15 magazine. Their marketing literally says, as good a performance as 22-250. Well, in this video, we're going to compare this to 224 Valkyrie, 223 Remington, 220 Swift, and 22-250 Remington. 220 Swift, 22-250, some of my favorites. Let me roll in a picture right here that I'm going to put up here. First is going to be the 22 ARC, then a 224 Valkyrie, then a 223 Remington. You can see the first three are about exactly the same overall length, so they can fit in that AR mag. Then there is a 22-250 Remington, which is not much longer overall length than the first three. And then lastly on the end there is 220 Swift. So get ready, get strapped in. I've spent a bunch of time compiling a bunch of my own data so I can educate myself on the 22 ARC based on all this data. Let me know what you think, and I'll give you some of my own conclusions. Is the 22 ARC new? Is it cool? Do we need it? Do we not need it? Or is it just a bunch of marketing hype to get us to buy some more bang bangs and some more boo lots? Or is there stuff that's already out there that we could pretty much do the same thing with? So let's jump right into it. Haven't done one of these a while. You guys have been subscribed for a little bit. We'll know what's happening. So I'm going to pop up on the screen right here. Boom! 22 ARC comparisons. Now we're going to talk about drop at varying distances out to like 1,200 yards. Then we're also going to talk about energy. Drop and energy compared across all 5 cartridges. I've used all of Hornady data, so none of y'all can argue, you know, in the comments. This is all stuff from Hornady's website. I took down, did all the computing on drop and energy at all these distances out to 1,200 yards. You really want to super nerd out, freeze it, screenshot it, whatever you want to do. But I've put a bunch of data in here. Ballistic coefficients, muzzle velocities, grain weights. Grabbed the most common of every cartridge and gave us a pretty cool visual, I think, on helping us really quickly identify the winners and the losers and the meh between all 5 of these cartridges. So get strapped in here. First, let's talk about energy. Also, squirrel brain here. At the end of the video, I'm also going to put up dials for your scope, just to help you out. I've gone and done all this data. Why not throw in the scope dials? If you have one of these, my numbers at the end of the video are going to help you with your dials. Should be real close, if not dead on, for what you're doing. Just check your velocities versus my velocities. I take it back. Let's pop up. Let's talk about drop first. So drop, everything the same, 0 to 100 yards, 1.5 inches assumed off of the bore axis, the scope off the bore axis. So red means bad, meaning drops the most. Green means good, meaning drops the least amount or the flattest. So right off the bat, let's just go right to 200 yards. So the best only drops about 1 inch, and the worst drops about 4 inches. So the 224 Valkyrie 88 grain drops the most between 100 yards and 200 yards. What drops the second most? That's the heaviest 223. What drops the third most? This right here, the 22 ARC, meaning at 200 yards, 204 Ruger's flatter. Some of the 223's flatter. All the 22-250 and 220 Swift is flatter. So at 200 yards, 22 ARC is not looking good, guys. Let's go on out to 300 yards. Where's all the grain still sitting? 204 Ruger, 22-250, 220 Swift, So from a drop perspective, 220 Swift and 22-250 are still outpacing the 22 arc. Let's go to 400 yards. What's the flattest still? Where's the most green still? Well, 400 yards is still the same. 500 yards, where's the green? It's still the same. So at the bottom of my graph here, when does 22 arc start outshining things? Meaning doing better than 220 Swift and 22-250 from a drop perspective? Well, it never beats 204 Ruger. Out to 1,200 yards, actually 1,100 yards, is when 1,000 yards, let's say, is when 22 arc starts to drop less than 204 Ruger. I don't know anybody who's taking coyotes at 1,000 yards. So does that really matter? Yeah, it's gonna have less drift, so on and so forth, but still, from a drop perspective, specifically, 22 arc doesn't really matter when you're comparing against all these until almost 1,000 yards. 800, 900 yards, the 22 arc starts to drop less than 220 Swift and 22-250. But really, at its core, I think the 22-250 Remington and the 220 Swift, they're really varmint rounds. Realistically, most people's practical use inside 300 yards, inside 400 yards. I don't know anywhere around me within an hour, 2 hour drive where I could even take a crack at a coyote at 300 or 400 yards. I know out west that's a different story. But freeze this, look at the drop numbers, put in the comments down below anything that I'm not thinking of, maybe why you love 22 arc. Now let's talk about energy. Here's where it kind of flips, and maybe 22 arc can save itself. On paper, if you look at the numbers, where's the green? Well, the most energy at the muzzle is 22-250 and the 220 Swift. That's a bright green there at the muzzle at the 0 column. But then, pretty quickly, 100 yards, the 22 arc overtakes everything from an energy perspective. If you look at 100 yards at the bottom is where the 322 arc loads are. Then you go to 200, 300, 400. The color scale pretty much stays the same. 22 arc has the most energy across the board at essentially every distance, with the exception of muzzle energy of the 22-250 and the 220 Swift. So again, feel free to freeze all of this, take a look at it, and nerd out. I will say, though, take a look at the 224 Valkyrie 88 grain. So the 88 grain 224 Valkyrie, I don't have one of the 88 grain, but Hornady this is the 88 grain 22 arc. I'll show you the box right here. Okay, somebody don't believe me. I picked this up at Tolliver's the other day. This is 22 arc 88 grain match. So Hornady is loading this exact same 88 grain projectile in the 224 Valkyrie. You can see the ballistic coefficient is good. It's the brightest green on that BC column. They're loading this same projectile right here. This is the 22 arc in a 224 Valkyrie. If you look at the cases, they're very similar. The difference in the cases, y'all, 224 Valkyrie is based on a 6.5 Grendel case. The 22 arc is based on a 6.8 case. So slightly more case capacity, but really, real close to the same, y'all. 224 Valkyrie. So Look at the energy here. Go back and look at the drop. I would argue, let's look at the muzzle velocity real quick on those 88 grainers. 2820 feet per second at the muzzle of the 22 ARC, and then 2675 feet per second of the Valkyrie. Pretty close. Pretty close. So, yeah. Nah. Does it matter? Well, the 22 ARC, because of that speed, is going to be flatter. We talked about that in the first chart. 22 ARC is flatter. Because of that speed, even though it's the same projectile, it's going to be flatter. But from an energy perspective, look at the chart. That 88 grain has more energy than the varmint load of the 22 ARC. So I'm not going to ramble on about it. One could argue that we already have the 224 Valkyrie. The case is very similar. It can load the same projectiles. It's the same overall length. It can also be in an AR. Meh. Did we need the 22 ARC? Meh. Take a look at the numbers. You let me know what you think. I got a 22 ARC I'm working on getting. They're making them some in bolt actions. They're making some in ARs. Here's my thoughts. If you're going to get a bolt action, get a 22-250 Remington. There's absolutely no reason for you to get a bolt action 22 ARC, in my opinion. Now, based on this data, you could say, well, man, it's got more energy at 1,000 yards than 22-250. Yeah, but does that really matter? Does it really matter? Or, it drops less at 1,200 yards. Does that really matter? I don't know. I'm not one to necessarily poo-poo on anything. If you want a bolt action in 22 ARC, hey, go ahead and do your thing, man. There's some affordable ones out there now. But does it shine because it fits in an AR and you want to stay in the scope? You can stay in the scope with any of these. I don't care if it's bolt action or a semi. They all are powder puff rounds, especially if you got a suppressor on it, which if you're coyote hunting and varmint hunting, a lot of you guys probably do. In an AR, well, 224 Valkyries are already in AR, so does that really matter? I don't know. I'm just here to put the data in front of you guys. I think they're all pretty cool. 204 Ruger, 220 Swift, 22-250 Remington, 224 Valkyrie, 22 ARC. There's the data. That's it. Take your own conclusions. Most people aren't taking them past 300 or 400 yards, I doubt. And in that range, probably doesn't matter much at all. They're all pretty much dropping, not a ton, but almost everything drops less than 22 ARC out to 700-800 yards. So if your argument is, I'm getting a 22 ARC because it drops less than the 22-250 or 220, no, it doesn't. But if your argument is, it's got more energy, it carries energy farther, it's got really good BC, heavier projectiles, okay, then we can accept your argument. But I'm not rambling on anymore. Let me pop up the scope dials. First in mils at all these ranges out to 1,200 yards. And then I'm going to pop it up here with all these Hornady loadings in MOA. I know some of you guys are MOA guys. I spent quite a bit of time on these numbers. Let me know if you see something that I messed up. Not that I could change it because the video's already up. But we could notate it somewhere. Let me know what you think. More videos soon coming on the 22 ARC. I think everything new is cool. And again, I'm not here to rain on anybody's parade. I just wanted to really dive in, look at the data. Is 22 ARC a marketing scam or not? That's for you to decide. It's kind of like when I started getting into the 264 Win Mag. What happened to 264 Win Mag? It's got better ballistics than the 6.5 PRC, but the 6.5 PRC is all the rage. But hey, man, we had 264 Win Mag 50, 60 years ago. I don't know. You be the judge. I'm just a regular old dude putting the numbers together to make it easy for you guys to check it out and read. But 22 ARC. Was the 224 Valkyrie good enough? Or the other one's good enough? Does anybody really care that it fits in an AR magazine or not? My perspective, not really so much. Some people probably does. I've already said I'm not going to ramble anymore 3 or 4 times. Appreciate y'all watching. Make sure you've checked out WHOTEEWHO.com. Checked out everything we got over there. Make sure you're signed up for the newsletter. Appreciate y'all. We'll see you on the next one. WHOTEEWHO!